Hello, and welcome back to the Marketing Chat Room. I'm Kayla Bryant here today with my guest, Sophie Fell. I am super excited to have Sophie here with us today. She is a published author. She wrote a book on PPC, as well as she was a speaker recently at Brighton SEO in London. And she is also the director of paid media at one of the best digital marketing agencies in the world, I would say. Happens to be the one I work for as well. So thank you, Sophie, so much for joining me today. I'm super excited for our chat.
Oh, thank you for the invite. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. To get us started, would you mind giving us a quick intro on yourself, a little bit of your background, and a little bit about what you do today and how you got there?
Okay, I'll try and do a potted history of career so far. So this month, or when this comes out in December, it will be 9 years in paid media. I don't know how I've done it. I don't know how I'm not grey yet. I'm getting there. Like some days I do wonder. Um, yeah, 9 years of paid media. So my career started because I joined a startup and I was the youngest person there by like 15 to 20 years, and they needed some help with their social media, and they were like, hey, you know how to use Facebook, right? I was like, yeah. So I ended up being their like social media. They actually used to call me the social media girl. So I was like 21 at the time. Um, and then honestly, I worked with an agency and they were incredible. And I just really fell in love with like the analytics, and we kept kind of sort of almost chipping away at what the agency was doing as I learned more and more. So I kind of fell into marketing by accident. Um, I did a few years of in-house roles, so when you just end up wearing all the hats, you're doing absolutely everything. And then I went freelance for a couple of years, and then I came back to the dark side, to agency life, which I was always told was going to be horrible compared to being in house. I think they both have their pros and cons. But yeah, so now 9 years in paid media, director of paid media at Two Trees, very exciting. And it's been a whirlwind. A lot has changed in the last decade or so. It's been a lot to keep up with. There's
Yeah.
been blood, sweat, and tears before we got there.
I bet a lot has changed in the last decade. Just, I mean, in the world itself, and then of course for anyone working specifically on the digital and or marketing side of the world, it's just a completely different landscape.
Yeah, even this year, like we just went to like SMX Next, and the kind of editor of Search Engine Journal said that this year's been the most, I don't want to butcher what he said, but something like the most oh my goodness, I can't think of the word. Just very like up and down year in paid media that he's ever remembered, like with the most
Oh,
changes to
wow.
contend with and all the platform changes and all the different ad formats. Like it has been constant, and at times it's felt like physically tiring trying to keep up with like everything that's changing all the time. So it's a lot. It's not for the faint-hearted, but I also absolutely love it. So
Yeah, that's great. I actually haven't heard that story about how you got your start yet, so thanks for sharing that.
that's okay.
And yeah, Sophie is the best at what she does. Super grateful to have her. This is my first time recording on Riverside, just so everyone knows. If you see me looking around, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here. I was like, where's our time? I see it now. I see it. So help us keep on track. Um, Awesome. Well, Sophie, I am going to go ahead and put you in the hot seat and
Okay.
ask you our questions that I like to ask all of my guests just to kick off the conversation. Well, the first one is, what is one of your most favorite ads or marketing campaigns in history, and why do you like it? And I'll link it below for the listeners.
Cool. So when I spoke to you about this before, I gave you two, and you said that one of them's already been mentioned, which I think
Yep.
proves that that one's the greatest. So we'll go with the second greatest, which is, so the one we're talking about is the Dollar Shave Club campaign. Again, it changed so much for marketers and the way we market to people, and it was just like groundbreaking. But on a similar vein, the any Old Spice video really, but there was one in particular that went crazy viral before viral was even a word that we would use really to describe it. And again, I think like if you watch it, they get so many like features and benefits of the product in there, but it never feels really like they're selling because there's so much action, there's so much stuff going on. And then you come away kind of with, I believe, like a lot of information retained that they're trying to get across to you, but it's like in the most entertaining format possible. I think it's like just under a couple of minutes, it goes really quickly. You're like wondering how they did all the transitions and stuff. Like it's just very technically impressive. But also from a marketing perspective, I think it did an incredible job. So that's my second favorite.
Yeah. Oh, I love that one. And it is a fun example because it really does stand out. And like you said, it probably stood out more at the time when there wasn't
Mhm.
there wasn't as much going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is for sure a memorable one.
Hmm.
Cool. And then what, like, based on that, like, let's say we were running that ad for the client, what would be like your favorite or most exciting metrics to see?
My gosh, I suppose like, and it's funny because all these things we're talking about are things that we've naturally spoken about over the last couple of weeks. So
Uh-huh.
kind of in the same vein of the conversation we were having yesterday, about an exciting potential client. I think again, I think, we have been so focused on generating traffic and things like that for so long. And like I spoke to about at Brighton SEO, like we've been so focused on performance marketing and like money in and money out. I think we've lost our way creatively at like top of funnel. And I think um again, really something like that. I mean, I would love to have seen, I could probably look it up if records go back that far, but how the Google trends for Old Spice increased as that video came up. I mean, I think it did an amazing job in terms of brand awareness, brand salience, brand knowledge, brand everything. And I think it would have been really interesting to see how that then converted into brand demand, but also eventually sales too. So I think
Yeah.
those would be the main metrics. Like, how does something like that got, I think it was like 24 million views or something crazy. Even if it was half of that at the time, like what did that do to their metrics? And yeah, if we were running something like that today, I think that's what we should be keeping an eye on.
Totally. Yeah, that would be a really cool case study. And
Mm.
I mean, what they're selling also is like really easily accessible. Like you can get it in any
Yes.
store, anyone can buy it. It's not like a high ticket price item. So
Hmm.
I bet the results were pretty amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine so. And I think like so many brands have tried to emulate that. I even tried to emulate the Dollar Shave Club version, where you're kind of walking through an office instead of all the really fancy stuff Old Spice did. We tried to emulate that in two of my previous roles, and it's not easy. You can't do
Yeah.
it with an iPhone and like an hour of rehearsing. Like
Right, right.
it's like you need like full production value, lighting, film
Uh-huh.
crews, multiple cameras and stuff. So it's funny because it looks low effort, but I think the amount of work that and planning and preparation that goes into it is nuts as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because I think a lot of brands today are doing like user generated style content and it's
Mhm.
performing better. But like you have to think about how they made that happen behind the scenes. Like it was not someone with an iPhone,
Yeah,
it's like a full production crew like trying to make it look like it was someone with an iPhone.
literally.
But
Do you know what? I watched something. So I love Lady Gaga, and
yeah.
I watched.
Sorry, guys, my camera died, so we're going to have Sophie answer that question again. Um, so basically, we were getting into a story about how much you love Lady Gaga and something something you saw the other day that you were going to share it with us.
Yes, so it was off the back of your comment about UGC, and then you don't realize how much goes behind it. So she was doing like an eyeliner or like a full face tutorial for House Labs, and she was like, the phone was like here, she was like right up to it, like super HD, like talking through what she did. And then they posted a behind the scenes clip where she was like, she finished and she went, how was that, guys? And the room was full of people. There were like loads of lights, but it seemed like such authentic Lady Gaga generated content.
Yeah.
But obviously it was all scripted and stuff. And even though I work in marketing, stuff like that still shocks me sometimes. I think I'm still naive to some things like that. Because I was so surprised that, I mean, obviously that's how she's going to do it. But also, I don't know, it just seems so authentic. And then when all that happened,
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I didn't quite feel the
Right.
same.
Yeah. But I like that she showed that side of it too,
Exactly.
because it's sometimes hard for us to realize or remember that like just normal people don't always like just look, magical when
Hmm.
they set up themselves in
Yeah.
front of their own phone camera to record. Like you need a lot of things going on in the
Hmm.
background.
Yeah. Lots of lights, lots of other people, a mirror, a very shiny mirror, all that
Yes,
kind of
yes.
stuff. So there's production value there for sure. But like I said, it did seem like a very authentic piece of, I don't want to say user generated content, so that doesn't feel right. Lady
Yeah.
Gaga generated content.
Yes, yes. She's in her own category.
Exactly.
Awesome. And then, kind of on the same note, if you could work for any company in the world and join the marketing team there, which one would you choose and why?
So this is like a boring answer, but for a good reason. So I think, I don't even know if you guys have this in the US. I think you do. Monzo, right? The little like orange bank cards. I don't know.
Sounds slightly familiar, but I
Like
don't, I don't,
corally. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
So they're basically like, they were like one of the first digital banks, and like our banking system in the UK, it's not quite as bad as yours, but our banking system was always very like stuffy and outdated and things like that. And they basically came into market and were like, hey, like this can be fun and you can use an app that actually works and all this stuff. So this was like, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago maybe, but they've done such an incredible job. Like their market penetration is crazy now, particularly among like millennials, Gen Z. Everything's super easy, everything's really user friendly, everything's super straightforward, and just their tone of voice is so good on socials. I think like we can fall into that trap of being a bit stuffy with like B2B or certain industries like banking and finance, and they've really broken the mold over the last, again, like 10 years. Similarly with Duolingo as well, right? Like the concept of it is kind of a boring topic in a way, and they've made it so fun, so accessible. Again, that millennial Gen Z sort of market, even younger now, like Gen Alpha too. So I think I don't know what I'd do with paid media for either of those things, but I would love to work for either of those brands in any capacity.
Yeah, those sound like fun ones that have made themselves fun because
Exactly.
they're not selling like tickets to a carnival. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not an exciting product, but they've kind of
No.
found a space and a voice and like especially for Duolingo, like they have a whole personality around their brand
Yeah.
now that most people who use the internet are familiar with.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, it's funny because it's just a language app, right? Like, that is all it is. But again, like you said, there's like social commentary around it, and how like anytime Dua Lipa is mentioned in the news, there's some link back to Duolingo, and how like they talk on X and other platforms, and it's just, yeah, it's like a team. I mean, an incredible team that have done really well at making something naturally boring and very dull to talk about super exciting, super accessible, and really like change the game, and become leaders where others are trying to follow, and in some cases never will, you know?
Yeah.
So those two are always like particularly impressive to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are good ones. And I like the bank example. I always trying to have conversations with banks and bring in more financial clients for us.
Yeah.
So we should pull in some inspiration from those types of accounts for sure.
Yes, yes, that's very true. And again, it's about you know, no one wants to see the same ad about banking, right? Or interest rates or whatever. There has to be something really special about it. So, like with Monzo, their brand identity is that they have this, they call it coral, this coral color card, and no other bank has it. And I know it sounds silly, but it's like become like a ostentatious sort of thing, you know, and like if
Okay.
you see someone pull out their Monzo, you're like, oh, that's a Monzo, and you can just tell because of the color of it and stuff. So their whole brand is just like chef's kiss. It's
That's
very,
so
very
cool.
good, very recognizable. So yeah, super cool in a very, again, very stuffy, very boring industry,
Yeah,
typically.
no, it really usually is. I'm trying to think if we have, I don't think we have that bank in the US, but I'm trying to think if we have a bank that's like as exciting as that. I know Capital One has had some fun commercials recently with celebrities. Like I know Taylor Swift did
Mm.
one maybe a couple years back now. So they try, but I mean it's not like it doesn't sound as good as the one you're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think like we're seeing that massive shift as well. Like, I guess, like, when you were growing up, when I was growing up, celebrities would be in like every commercial, right? Like, everything you'd see on the telly, there would be like, for us, like David Beckham or like some footballer or some sports person or a tennis person or whatever, or a pop star or whatever. And like, it's funny to see that shift too, and how that's like gone from those TV ads, the billboards, the cinema ads, the video ads that you see everywhere to again more of this like we follow them on Instagram and we know everything they do every minute of the day and you know the
Yeah,
amount that they can command for a single post and stuff like it's I mean even in the last 10-15 years that shift in marketing's just been crazy, truly
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, it has. It's super interesting. What are your favorite types of clients? Like, what types of clients do you want me to bring in to work on?
um I keep nagging you about travel clients.
Yes,
I keep nagging you about that because that's something that's
travel's a good one.
so enjoyable to do. And one of the really awesome things about so as we know, I work in paid media, but my heart is in Google Ads. This is I love them. I don't love them. That's not true. But that's where my passion really, really lies. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff you can do. I think when Google are kind of coming up with new features, it seems as though like e-commerce especially, but like hotels and travel, they have very, very, very specific SEO and paid media things that you can do for travel, for like hotels and for searches like things to do in Paris. And there's like special things for that. And it's
Yeah.
really, really cool. So it's like weirdly forward thinking, but then it also allows us to actually do something really exciting for travel brands too, and do something that's not and not that we do this, but not like a copy paste of any other strategy. It's like totally
Hmm.
unique, you know, and there's so many different things you can do. So I love travel. I love advertising travel. And
Yeah.
e-commerce is another one that's really, really interesting. I know we've had a few various pitches for e-commerce stuff this year, and it's so different because although it comes under paid media, the levers that you have are so, so different. It's almost like a different skill entirely. So I think that to me is really interesting. That's something I enjoy doing because it's like outside the traditional kind of search ads and things like that. So yeah, e-commerce and travel brands are my happy place.
I love that. So if you're listening to this episode and you work for a travel brand or an e-commerce company, hit me up. We want to work with you so you can make Sophie happy, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And Kayla
Um,
happy. Kayla's trying to fund her
I would love that
mansion,
too.
so
Yes. I would love that too. No, travel, I think travel is super fun. I've done a few proposals for travel companies. And e-commerce obviously makes a lot of sense for us to work on. But yeah, travel is one of those that is aspirational. I think I actually have a conversation coming up, but It's just you can do so much with it, and who
Yeah.
doesn't love travel?
Exactly. It's like wide appeal, and you can come up with some, phenomenal creatives, like absolutely
Mhm.
jaw-dropping creatives. And I think that's why I love it so much. And it's again something
Yeah.
that a lot of people love to do. We may not always have the disposable income needed, but also there's, I mean, particularly in the US, there's local travel or like in staying in your country travel. Like for me, I have to get on
Yes.
a plane to go experience like skiing or hot or any of those things,
Right.
which
That's so
makes
true.
travel like so appealing to like Brits and people in Europe, right? Because it's so easy and we're so close together and things like that. I mean, a lot of people in the US never get a passport in their lives, right? Because why would you
Yeah.
need to leave? And there's you can experience all four seasons and you can experience so much. So I always think that's really funny, like the cultural differences and like travel. Because if you were in the UK and
Mhm.
never had a passport and never left the UK, like that's really weird. It's like odd behavior.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
travel's a really interesting one, and the nuances of travel globally are really, really interesting.
For sure. Yeah. I think, I mean, in the US, it'd be super fun to do marketing for one of like the travel bureaus, like Visit California or visit like any state or any county, like they all
Mm-hmm.
have one. And just, I mean, there are so many different like climates and landscapes here. It would be, I mean, it would be fun to do all of them and just like highlight all the
Yeah.
different things that are available in all the various states and all the national parks too. Like
Mm.
we have a lot to promote here.
There is a lot, and again, like you never need to leave, you don't have that restriction of needing a passport necessarily, and that can be a barrier for some people as well. So yeah, travel's a really exciting one because just the breadth and depth of opportunities for digital marketing, and it's just super exciting for those sorts of
Yeah,
brands.
yeah, it is. All right. We have this like long list of questions, and I really want to ask you all of them,
Oh
but
no,
we'll
that's okay.
but we'll just pick a few more. How do you stay updated with the latest trends and like changes in marketing and in PPC and I mean you do a lot in paid media as the director.
Yeah.
How do you stay up to date with everything that's happening there?
Yeah, it's no mean feat trying to stay up to date with everything, honestly. It literally comes down to industry publications. So like places like Search Engine Journal that will update, every minor change that Google has, as well as all the big ones, obviously. But like, this setting has been removed from this date. You won't be able to do this anymore. Things like that are like crucial. They're like a Bible. They often get pre-briefed or like quotes directly from Google too, and they always break down what does this mean for you. So even if you can't understand the jargon or you don't really know what they're talking about, there's room to be like, okay, this means this for your campaigns, which I
Okay.
think is really cool. So definitely industry publications, definitely creating. So I'm part of a couple of different communities that talk about nothing but paid media or nothing but PPC. So there's a lot of people, some of them have got thousands of members. So being part of those communities is really, really helpful as well. And in
Where
those
are those?
they're all online. They're all virtual and remote, which is very, very handy. So I
Okay.
have three main ones. So Women in Tech SEO, they have 5 to 6 thousand members globally. It's not just for people in SEO. It's for women and people of marginalized genders in PPC, social, email, kind of digital marketing. The most supportive community of people ever. They're really, really wonderful. There's another one called Girls in Marketing who do a similar thing. It's more geared towards, I would say, like junior people, people just starting out, and again, women, people in just coming into PPC, social, SEO, and again, having that community of support, because so many of them are, maybe marketing exec that is their first job and they're being asked to do Google Ads and social and learn all of these things and be really good at them instantly.
Mhm.
And then the third one is PPC Live. So they do events around the UK, I think 4 or 5 times a year. And there's a WhatsApp again with about 3 to 5 thousand people in. And it's basically a massive Q&A, which is really, really helpful. So again,
Nice.
new features, Google goes down, so Google Ads went down yesterday. Sharing things like that. Are we seeing this in reporting? What's this glitch? What's this bug? So those three groups are like a huge source of support as well. And I
That's
think
really cool.
finally, yeah, with the team just coming back from Brighton SEO San Diego, we didn't go. That's okay.
I know. We missed out.
We're going next year, so we're on the list for
Yes.
next year. So we're
So
raring to
excited.
go. But even things like that, again, those events, whether they're virtual or in person, are always hugely helpful too. So I think it's a combination of those things, and also like just staying in platform, honestly, and knowing how. Well, I mean, we just had a massive UI change on Google Ads, for example, and if I wasn't in platform, I wouldn't have known that necessarily or how to navigate it. So a combination of all those four things, I think, is how I try and keep sane, stay up to date with as much change as
Yeah.
possible.
That's awesome. And so you said one of those communities is on WhatsApp. Are the other ones on like LinkedIn or Facebook, or where can people find those?
Yeah, so Women in Tech SEO, you have to apply to join on their website,
Ah,
but we can put some links somewhere
yeah,
for these
this is
things, I'm
cool.
sure.
Let's do it. Yeah, in the
um,
notes. I'll put them in the notes.
Girls in Marketing is the same, so it's like a big Slack channel, but you need to request to be invited. And then, yeah, the PPC Live one is on WhatsApp, but again, you need to request to be added. So we will put links somewhere around
Cool.
here
Yeah,
for all those
absolutely.
three.
Down here, up here, I don't know. We'll
I
find
don't
out, but we'll put the links.
know.
We'll put the links somewhere for sure. Okay, that's awesome. I didn't know those existed, but that makes a lot of sense because then you have other people helping you. Like you don't have to be watching like a hawk for every little change because there are so many. You'd miss one. You just would. It would
Of
happen.
course.
So that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really nice to be part
Love
of
it.
those communities and, you know, just having groups of people that are doing the same job as you but somewhere else, or, it's just really, really great to get those perspectives from other people for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. Would you share with us one of your like most exciting, most successful marketing campaigns that you've had the opportunity to work on?
Yes. So it might be recency bias, but there was one this year that we worked on that I just will never stop talking about. I'm just so proud of what we were able to do. So we were briefed by a client. They had some specific ideas on their audiences, the channels that they wanted to be on. And again, as we've mentioned, I'm a paid search girl at heart. And I really, really strongly felt that there was an opportunity for them on search. However, they understandably had struggled over the last few years and really found it difficult to find value out in search outside of just brand terms.
Mhm.
So Meta was a really big one for them. They wanted to try out TikTok, they wanted to try out LinkedIn. So we did all of that. And every so often I would say, hey, I've done all the research. Like, here's Google Trends, here's keyword volumes. Like, there is demand for this. Like, basically begging. Like, please, please let me try this. And there was no kind of incentive for us to do it, right? If anything, it was more work to do it. It wasn't like, we didn't get more payment out of it. There wasn't anything for us other than just like we all share, which I really love, like just a deep care for the client and their results, and without necessarily, again, it was more work, right? But they eventually let us a few months in, and they had the most record-breaking year ever. So they had a target of $7 million in revenue. We ended up at $10.5 million in revenue. The previous year they reached $5 million in revenue. So absolutely like astronomical growth, and they had to grow their internal team. They had to add more spots. Like there was a lot of stuff they had to do. So it was really great to be part of something from the beginning and really, really see it through, and just to have such amazing results. And they've said time and time again how happy they are. We're re-engaged for next year as well. So there's not a lot more we can ask, right? It's really great
Yeah.
results, really happy client, people getting promotions out of it on their side, like
Hmm.
literal structural changes within the business as a result. So that is my favorite one, and I love it
Yes.
because yeah, it was a good one to work on. I'm really excited for next year with them.
For sure. Yeah, I love that one too. Happy clients are our favorite thing because if
Hmm.
we're like, I mean, if we're able to help a client's company grow, there's really nothing better. Like we've done our job well. They're
Yeah.
happy, we're happy, everyone gets to grow. I mean, that helps our company grow too when we help others succeed. Because we're just a little marketing agency, like doing our best. We're not like those big greedy ones that are like, give us more money. We're like, no,
Yeah.
we actually want to help you succeed. Like that is our goal.
Yeah.
We're not trying to take your money here.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, I mean, money's great, so give
We'll
us a
take the
little bit of
money.
money, but
I mean, if you're
but
throwing money at us, we won't complain,
we'll
but
have it. But no, I mean, because they're coming back for 2025. They're a seasonal company, so they're coming back for the 2025 season. And their budgets are about $200,000 more than we had this year. So they've got that growth, right? They can invest more next year, which is great. And I think we're now referring to this year as like the learning year. We got a
yeah.
lot of data this year. We learned a lot, and we can come into next year, quicker off the mark because we know what works, what worked this year at least. We've got a great place to start. So yeah, they're really happy. We're really happy. You can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, it's so cool. And it's great to start out when you have already some solid data points and like growth goals. That's an ideal kind of situation for bringing on a client.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to ask you, what are some common mistakes that you see people making in marketing, and maybe how could we avoid those?
I think probably the most common mistake, and I think this actually comes from agency and in house. It doesn't matter where you are. I don't think anyone's really immune to it, and you have to try really hard not to fall into this trap. Is that as marketers, in most cases, not always, but you're not the target audience. And I think
Yeah.
you can be skewed so much by like personal, I've had so many conversations with like even clients that are like, well, I don't click Google ads, so why would other people? Like if I see them in the search results, I purposely don't click them and things like that.
Uh-huh.
Or like I don't like that color, therefore no one's going to click the ad, or I don't like what that says, no one's going to click it. So I think that's a really common mistake and like trap that we fall into. Like I'm not, I'm part of this too. We're like, I
Yeah.
physically do not like how that ad looks, therefore it's terrible. But actually, sometimes some of what I think's the worst creative has worked time and time again throughout my career. And I'm like, I would never publish that, and then, it does amazingly. So I think just being as data driven as possible and being like cognizant of the fact that usually you're not the target audience, and being open to testing that too. So I think that's like honestly probably the biggest mistake and the biggest trap that people fall into, and you have to sort of consciously pull yourself out of that, I think, as well.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And that, yeah, just being a person in marketing, I've definitely fallen into that. Like I always try to put myself in like the brand's shoes and in the consumer's
Mm,
shoes, which I mean, I think is a helpful exercise,
yeah.
but you do have to remember like everyone's not me. So
Yeah.
if I don't like the ad, just because I don't like it, I think it's ugly, that doesn't mean that it's not going to perform well.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
sometimes it might, but like you said, testing is a great way for marketers to solve internal arguments because I don't like this ad and you don't like this ad. Like, let's test them and see which one performs better. I think we should start doing that. Let's just make everything a competition and be like, okay, you think this is going to perform well? Let's see.
We should, we should. I think there's been times, again, not just at Two Trees, in my whole career,
Yeah.
where a client's been like, these are my personal preferences as well. And we've been like, no, but this is the data driven way of doing it. And sometimes we
Yeah.
end up just agreeing with the client, right? Because they're the client, they're our client. But sometimes, yeah,
Hmm.
I think we should wield testing at that in that essential crossroads a bit more. And if they're right and it's data driven, then that's fine. There are
Yeah.
no like qualms with them being right, but it's just if we have data rather than relying on personal preference, I think that's
Uh-huh.
the best way to do it and the fairest way, to make those comparisons.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all have our own like biases and generalizations about specific audiences of people. Like we're like,
Yeah.
oh, these are skiers. They like A, B, and C. Well, I don't know. I'm not a skier. Like, how would I be able to to really say what they're going to want to see on an ad?
Yeah, that's it. And I think like even sometimes we've had ads that are specifically for like maybe older people on like Facebook or something like that. And again, we'll
Mhm.
look at the ad and be like, that is horrible. That's like
Yeah.
heinous, like absolutely vile. And again, they perform really well among that audience because we're not aged over 65. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest mistake and the biggest trap people fall into is they're letting their own personal biases affect the creative and the output that we have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I really like that one. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that
You're
little
welcome.
insight. We'll weave that into a lot of different things that I do
Yeah.
in my world. Cool. And then I think I have just one more question that I want to ask you. So you have been a part of in-house marketing teams and on the agency side. Can you talk a little bit about that? What's maybe some differences in how collaboration looks, or just your experience between the two, and what you like about pros and cons, whatever comes to mind for you.
Okay, yeah. Um, so we'll start off with in-house. I think when you're an agency, and I've heard this so many times, everyone thinks in-house is easier, right? Because it's one client to focus on and
Yeah.
put all your energy towards, and that's great. However, usually when you're in-house, except for really, really, really big brands, if you're in marketing, you will be the person that wears all the hats or someone who's part of a team that wears all the hats. So, in the majority of companies, I would say, you can't afford to be siloed into one thing. Like, I only do SEO or I only do PR. You have to not only be able to do a lot of those things yourself, but also to be able to work with freelancers, to work with agencies to make those things happen and get those outcomes, to bring everything together for reporting and stuff. So, although it sounds easier because it's one client, again, you're still doing 10 jobs like we are agency too.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the biggest thing. I did really enjoy, I think for me personally, starting my career in house was the best thing for me because I had to learn everything and then I could find what I really enjoyed. I think that helps you if you've had exposure to like everything or a lot of different things, then you can find your little niche. But I think in terms of agency, obviously it's very, very busy. It's very hectic. There's a lot of plates that we're juggling. But again, it's not for everyone, but I find that more exciting. Like, I get quite excited about all the different strategies and all the different things we can do and are doing for our clients that are, I know a lot of them are in completely different industries, and we've got, I
Mhm.
could be working on like an e-commerce account 1 minute and then like B2B hardcore lead generation over here on LinkedIn 2 minutes later. And I quite like that. It kind of works pretty well with me and my brain. Like I said, it's not for everyone. But yeah, so I think that's like probably the major change between the two is how often you can kind of like niche down into what you really enjoy, and that kind of T-shaped marketer versus just you're kind of focused on one thing. um so it's definitely not easier to be in house, so we'll quell that misconception today. It's definitely not easier. In terms of pros and cons, again, it's kind of like how, I mean, either way, you're normally working with various teams. You might have in-house teams you work with. You might have, again, agencies and freelancers in both as well. So there's
Mhm.
definitely a huge skills overlap, I would say. But personally, for me, if I could give someone just starting out in marketing advice, I would say do everything. Don't niche down too soon, and then pick what you like after that. You can be T-shaped, right? You can know a bit about everything and then specialize in one or two things in the middle.
Yeah, for sure. You read my mind. I was going to say, if you could give one piece of advice, like
Oh.
to a marketer based on that conversation, what would it be? And that I think that's smart because I was going to say, like, would it make more sense for them to start out at an agency or to start out in-house? But I guess either one could work as long as they take that mindset.
Yeah, definitely. Like again, you get collaboration with other teams either way. Sometimes you might have a little bit more responsibility sooner in-house, but on agency, again, you will experience lots of different industries and lots of different ways of
Mhm.
doing things. So it again, it depends what you want to do really. But I think if you can get exposed to as many kind of facets of digital marketing as possible, I would say start there. Because then you've kind of got your pick, right? You can stay specialized or you can stay T-shaped and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super cool. I've only had experience on the agency side, so I love it, but I'm very biased because I don't I don't know what it's like to market in-house. I'm sure it would be really fun in its own way. But I'm with you. I like how we get to be creative across like a really broad variety of audiences, of industries,
Mm.
of types of marketing, of platforms. Like there's a lot that we get to do as
Mm-hmm.
a digital marketing agency. And I think that's like a lot of the enjoyment I get out of it. Like even it's similar to in my former career, I taught elementary school. And what I liked about that job was that every day was different and it was fun and
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting and it was a little chaotic and unpredictable. Very similar to working for a digital marketing agency.
Yeah.
Very similar. Like no 2 days are the same.
Mm-hmm.
We're like not just maybe some agencies 2 days are the same. I don't know. I think a lot of the bigger agencies like niche down really hard and they're like, we do marketing for tire companies. And they
Yeah.
just like apply the same strategy to every tire company, which sounds really boring to me personally. Like I love that we get to talk to like the wine industry and the business to business, like packing industry and consultants and like
Mm-hmm.
virtual schools and so many different like law firms. They're all so different, like the personalities, the personas, the avatars, but really fun to be able to learn about those industries and like strategize creatively kind of on like my sales brain end and then collaborate with you on the paid media side as far as like what placements and targeting could look like. It is a fun time. I love
Mm-hmm.
it.
It is. And even with like the new business stuff, like obviously that you've been doing all year, it's that too. Like how many times have you come to me?
I know what you're
You're
gonna say.
like, this is a weird one. You're like, it's another weird. Or you're like, this one's really niche. And then we end up researching and finding out about something I've never done before and never spoken about before or something. So
Yeah.
that's what I love to. I never know what I'm going to get when you message me, Kayla. There's always something new. But I like that. Like you said, I think yeah, if we were super niche and like you said did the same thing and it was like, okay, this one's in California, this one's in Florida, we'll do exactly the same thing. Like I think there's very little job satisfaction in that for someone like me, for someone like you. So I think yeah, and you learn so many random facts too. Like, I know so much about like plumbing and like mortgages and like even
Yeah.
before having a house, like you just learn so many interesting little facts along the way too, which I also find like nourishes my brain as well. So
Yeah.
it is interesting. I think agency has my heart. For now, I can't imagine going back in house unless again it was somewhere enormous that just needed someone for to do paid media. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think agency life works out pretty well for me. Maybe I just love the chaos. Maybe that's what it is.
I think that it's an addiction a little bit. I love it. Yeah, we should keep a tracker of like how many times I come to you with like, okay, this is a weird one. This is a weird one.
Oh, they're always
It's
so
always something.
interesting though. They're
I
always,
know.
they're never anything that where I'm like, what the hell? It's
Yeah.
always something interesting and it will be like a really like a subset of a subset of a subset of a market and there'll be an audience for it. Like there's always an
Mhm.
audience for it.
Yep.
So yeah, no, it is again, it's that challenge that I like too, right? So
Yeah,
it's
there's
good.
always a strategy. It's like a
Yeah.
puzzle, kind of like putting together a
Yes.
big puzzle with a lot of pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to chat about today? Okay.
I don't think so, no.
Cool. Well, this was a really, really fun convo with you, Sophie. As always, didn't even mention that Sophie's in the UK, so we're on different time zones.
Yeah.
So we're going to say it's morning for me, but we're going to say goodnight to Sophie. And thank you again so much for joining. And where can people connect with you?
Um, Probably mainly LinkedIn, honestly. Sophie Fell PPC, you'll find me. Go on Kayla's profile, you'll find me somewhere. I'll be
Yeah,
there cheering
she'll
her
be
on in
there.
her posts, yeah.
She'll be there.
That's
Yeah.
the main place, and then obviously twotreesppc.com for everything else.
Yeah, yeah. We would love to work with you. If you're a potential client, we're the best. Um, well, cool. I will sign us off, but please leave us any comments or questions that you have after watching this episode, and we can always do a follow up or reply to you in the comment section. But yeah, thank you again, and talk to you guys later. Bye.